We work with multi-billion-dollar businesses. We do 20, $30 million bids a year.
Chris owns more trucking in Canton, do a lot of work in the gas industry. He owns Farmer Boy Restoration and Environmental. He owns Moreway Farms. He owns CM Investors. He's a partial owner of Cuz Excavating and also a partial owner of Cuz Concrete. We live in a society or a culture which is constantly shoving college down these kids' throats. You got to go to college. Got to go to college. What are you going to college for? You're going to college. Where are you going to college? The thing is, like I said to Chris yesterday, you've got what you got through sound business decisions and hard work. And I think that's something that we need to continue to teach our young people with. It's sound decisions and hard work. And education is an important part of helping us propel us in our careers, but it's only a part of that. So with that being said, Chris?
As Mark said, I'm Chris Moore. The companies he listed. As I was growing up, I didn't live here. I came from a broken family at 3 years old. Moved to Lock Haven in my younger years with my mom. And then I moved back into this area because this is where my father was from. Because of my dad's alcoholism in his life, I wasn't able to live in my father's home throughout high school. I didn't come from a Christian background, but I chose to follow that path in life. The saying, I guess, I follow in my life is the people you surround yourself with is who you become. I chose, like Scott Shedden and Josh Shedden and his family, I just chose to go to church with different friends that I had throughout life. Even when I lived in Lock Haven, one of my best friends, they went to church, and I always rode my bike to his house every morning, and I'd go to church with him. My parents didn't go to church. I lived in 3 different family homes by 10th up to 12th grade years. And probably my biggest driving factor of where I am today is not wanting to live the life that my parents lived, struggling financially, struggling with life choices. I watch people like Jay Good, Jeff Seacrest, be successful in their lives and do what they do. I always had the dream to have a farm like Jay. I, to this day, haven't figured out how to be bunny farming, but he is up pretty well with that. I farm, and we have beef cows, and I enjoy it. It's a hobby. I actually worked on Herbert's farm after they sold it to Dave. I worked there in high school, and back when 9/11 hit, I did all the feeding. Weekends, I did all the milking on weekends. And my teachers would get so mad at me. I've never been on time for anything in my entire life. And a lot of my excuse today is I try fitting 26 hours in a 24-hour day. So I wouldn't suggest following that track in life, but that's the track I went, and it keeps me on my toes. I guess from that point forward, I had done logging for a while. The logging industry kind of fell on its face. When the gas industry came, I decided I'm going to go get my CDL and buy a truck. Everyone said it was nuts. This is where I get back to Jay's ending statement of never quitting, never giving up. You're not going to succeed unless you fail first, because you learn from your failures to succeed. Even the people that support you the most will have some doubt. And some of the successors in our business, as I was starting, like, you're nuts, you'll never be able to make it. We have 50 trucks, just in the trucking company side. And we've had companies come up here that had 100, 200 truck companies telling us that give them 6 months to a year and they'll be the only ones here. They've since all came and gone, and we're still standing on our feet. Part of that is being involved with what you do. You surround yourself with good employees. Every time we have something going on in our businesses, I tell everybody I can only do one thing. I can't drive 50 trucks. So the employees are what makes your company what it is. We grew in Oilfield from one truck running 16, 18 hours a day, every day. And my current life now is since, because of business and everything else, life choices has went to the wayside. But at the time, she would start my truck in the morning. I'd come home at midnight, 1 o'clock, at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. She'd start my truck back up so I'd be in the shower, but she'd start us and start warming up, and I'd go back to work, and I just put a lot of hours in. I wouldn't suggest doing that either. I mean, get yourself involved in a business that doesn't take your entire life to make it work. I guess everybody has an addiction in life, and mine was, I guess, a workaholic. We grew in the industry, and then we started a company called Farmer Boy Restoration and Environmental. And That came from a pipe dream of watching this big company come through town that was a union company. I think they had like 50 John Deere tractors, the crazy operation. That's like farming only at a higher scale and make better money at it. And I don't have to milk cows. So that's why I chose to do the pipeline restoration. Day board together. We started it with his junky Nissan pickup and a junky skid steer, and I had a little Balcher tractor, and it was quite an experience starting that for the first time. But farm equipment that we had here to farm with, trying to do a commercial business. We started that company and we made it float, and it rose, and in our peak we were running 6 spreads at one time, plus I was running all the trucks on the back side of things. And going back to Jay, where the employees and giving people a second chance. Josh Shedden told me a long time ago, and I will always forever value this, that I've been very fortunate, very lucky to have what I have in my life. And I never really could figure out how I was able to do what I did. I had a lot of hard work involved, but I always said it was luck. If it's being in the right spot at the right time. Josh's analogy of it was, he feels that God blessed me with what I have because of my heart to give. And we donate to a lot of things. We have 2 employees that work in my shop now. We don't pay them a lot. They came from a rough life. They were addicted to drugs. They were living in a tent. Left the office, went down to the gas station to get a chocolate milk one night, and they were sitting on the side of the road trying to start a fire down there by Prime Crisis Club thing. I pulled out, what are you guys doing? And the kid had contacted me in the past and was like, "Not really use a job," but I didn't think he would ever pull himself out of where he was at. Well, when he told me he was living in a tent, he told me again we needed a job. I was, well, if you come to the office tomorrow, I'll fill an application out again, we'll talk. So I figured, give him the rope, see if they pull it. But you can't push a rope uphill. He showed up at the office. Put his application in. My wife, everyone else in our office, when are you going? This is just one example. We have multiple employees that had been completely shattered bones, drug addicts, alcoholics, everything you can imagine. I've always felt that I go back to my life and where I started from in the broken family that I had. If the 3 homes I lived with were Scott Moore, my cousin, Jim Wright, my 11th grade year, and that Jim's actual ex-wife, Sheila Jackson, Mike Jackson, my senior year. If they weren't willing to give me that chance at a better life or to have a family setting, my mom's a great woman, don't get me wrong. She's a very hard worker. It's just the area where she worked at Lockheed University. I could have went a whole different path in life. There was times I hung out with people I should have hung out with through Rayout High School that could have taken me down a complete opposite road for the road I went. Kind of going back to Mark too, when he said about college. I could have went to college for free because my mom actually worked at Lockheed University. I'm not book smart, I'm not computer smart. I copied my way through high school, and that's how I got where I am. I'm numbers smart, mathematically very smart, and business obviously smart. You know, we work with multi-billion-dollar businesses. We do $20-30 million bids a year. I had went to the high school when this transition of Farmer Boy and More Trucking starting. We had spoke at the high school for kind of a speaking group like this, and the school board had an absolute shit fit because I went in there and said, you don't have to go to college to be successful. And half the people that don't go to college are going to make more than the teachers that are teaching you. Because at the end of the day, I feel like I'm busier now than ever, but I can honestly tell you I feel like I accomplished half of what I used to because you're at the top of the food chain. And it's everyone that's down below, the blue collar people, I guess you would say, and the people that didn't go to college, and the trade school people that do the welding, and the truck drivers and your mechanics. And that's honestly where the gold is in the pot, because without all of that, everybody that's at our level is going to fail without everyone else below us. So it's a struggle, but you can be successful without it. Pushing forward, I bought Dave out of our Farmer Boy company. We had an option to sell our trucking company 6 years ago, I guess, and for a very profitable number. Jessica and I kind of sat and talked about it. Looking back at it, maybe we should have sold because I would be a lot less stressed. My marriage could still be together. A lot of things would have changed in my life had we have sold back then. But we look at our employees and the people that got us to where we are, and that means more to me than a dollar. You can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have people around you that you enjoy spending time with and call your family and friends, a dollar doesn't mean anything. We chased bigger pipelines in different states. One of our bigger achievements of that company, we've actually been working in Lake Placid for the Olympics. They're putting millions of dollars into the infrastructure up there. They had the Olympics there in 1980. They are completely revamping the entire infrastructure on all the ski resorts and the infrastructure for the jumping center and the downhill. We put all the snowmaking pipe in and the airlines and trail building for a possible event. But we've been there for 7 years doing that work. I would say roughly about 4 years ago, Dave was ready to retire the first time. and I bought him out his share of Puzz Excavating. Justin pretty much runs the company. I'm more of a silent partner of the company, but I'm involved to an extent of phone calls. He runs the company day to day, top to bottom. It was more of an investment for me to be involved in a broader spectrum of business, and with where we were growing and the amount of equipment that they had, it only made sense to dub them off money essentially, because when I need extra equipment, I rent it from, I would say, a sister company, Puzz Excavating, and make a third of that money back by renting from myself. And from an investment standpoint, you're just rolling your money. Throughout this process, I bought a couple farms. One was a bankruptcy sale, and I did it out of helping the family, hoping the family would end up back on their feet. It was an investment to me to help them save the family farm. Didn't turn out that way in the end. My mom lived in Lockgate and moved to Williamsport. She's now going to move up on that farm, so I can at least justify still having the farm for myself. It's full of beef cows. The beef market's healthy now. I'm not saying it's a bad investment, but it's an investment that I have. Our properties are held by another entity, and the reason that we did that is each business rents from the other entity, and so we did that more so for a level of protection. With the trucking company, it looks from the outside like, wow, you got a well-oiled machine, but we have issues, we have incidents. There's nothing in this world that's perfect, and people will tell you that it is, but that it's not. We've rolled trucks over, we've had accidents, we've had spills, we've had $1 million cleanups. Two of the hardest things the business had to face. I'm going to back up a little bit. We started a pipeline company in Pittsburgh. There were 7 of us that started it, and we lost $1.6 million in 6.5 weeks. Invest that kind of money, and you watch it kind of just go into a garbage can and catch on fire. It's a tough pill to swallow. You're going to spend money in an education to get a college education. I went to the school of hard knocks. We spent the money and failed miserably, but when you fail, you just pick your head up and you figure out where you can succeed to make up for what you lost. One of the hardest things in the trucking that I've had to deal with, I have actually bought another company out from California. The investors had 11 trucks here, and they were subbed to us, and I did buy them out, and that's what kind of doubled down our fleet size back then. And as I was looking at acquiring another trucking company, because the guy was from Williamsport, he was ready to retire. He was in his 80s. The guy had been trucking his whole life. He came to me. I've been friends with him for years, and we possibly could have been probably the largest trucking company in this area in the oil field had I taken the acquisition on. The reason I did not was because we had a fatality. A couple weeks after that came across my plate, we had a truck driver that was going to retire in 2 months. And he was just going to stay on part-time. He was 74 years old. He was going to be like a part-time trainer. Like, he was very organized, very clean, very just down-to-earth, great person. The long story short, got out of the truck and never set the brakes when he got out. And it took his life. So I took a lot of flack from our employees because of that, because I held my head high. I just kept pushing forward. Someone in a situation like that, when you're an owner of a business, that's a lot of defeat in your mind. Things are already tough. It is what it is. I've said that lots of times, and people look at it as disrespectful comment. I look at it as, I can't change what happened 5 minutes ago. I can't change what happened yesterday. There's a saying that life's a mystery and tomorrow's a gift. A lot of our employees are like, how do I not show emotion? How do I just not care? Well, it's not that I didn't care. I had to get through the business side of everything before my personal life could take over my feelings of what was going on. When I had to speak to all of our employees, it was a rough conversation. I was great until about halfway through it. I started to blame myself for this incident happening, although it was no fault of my own. At that time, we start taking blame for things that maybe you shouldn't be taking blame for. But he was working for me, so I felt like it was my fault. Jay talked about that when you're young, you have a lot of drive. At his age, his drive's kind of out. He's got a son-in-law that and his daughter's taking his farm over and is running things very well. I'm not to that point yet, but I can tell you that my drive has slowed down a lot over the years. I've just kind of burnt myself out from burning the candle at both ends. So that kind of took the steam out of me when that happened. So I didn't take that acquisition on. And then after that, the Cuz Excavation acquisition, and then Dave decided he wasn't going to retire and started another company called Cuz Concrete. And then he retired again. So now my focus is kind of on that company, trying to help it. It's growing faster than the financials are allowing it to. So I'm trying to articulate it and get it to make business sense to where it will float to be a multi-million-dollar company. At one time, with everything I was involved with, we had 150 employees. And I thank all my employees for getting us where we are. Without them, we wouldn't be who we are. There was a lot of risk, a lot of chances, a lot of trust. And I truly believe that you have good, solid employees we have guys that are 40, 50, 60, 70 years old. And I would say the 50, 60, 70-year-olds are loyal as can be. I can tell you that the guys from their 20s to their 40s, 50s, the ones that are the most loyal are the ones that you gave a second chance at life to, because they look at you as, you gave me a chance when nobody else would. And that's where I strongly believe in people and changing even young kids coming out of high school. They come from a broken family and think they can't ever do anything in their life, but they can. They just got to choose. It's all a choice. Life's a choice. You got to choose what direction you're going to go. You got to choose who you're going to surround yourself with. You got to choose how you're going to end your life throughout life. If you set the bar high, just keep chasing it. Matthew McConaughey had done a speech that what we chase is who you are tomorrow. You're chasing who you're going to become tomorrow. You're chasing the success of who you can be. And you want to leave people behind you, remembering you for, yes, I have success. I have a lot of failure. That wasn't all perfect. We failed at a lot of things. But if at the end of my life, everyone can say, hey, he helped everybody he could help, that's all I need. If you do become successful, always invest in money. Some people have off the wall ideas that can go somewhere. It's just the world is changing. The dynamics of how people think and the things that people are interested in have changed so much over the years that there's potential in everything. It's just a matter of how much time and effort you want to put into things to be able to be successful. And like I said before, I think your success is measured by who you surround yourself with. Listening to Jay, I really think God has a lot to do with your success in life.
Something I forgot to share about Chris. Here's a man that runs multi-million-dollar businesses, but when I talked to him on the phone yesterday, he's like, well, do you need me there all day? Because I got my kids this weekend. His son could run a dozer and an excavator probably before he could read.